Are you feeling the calling to start or grow a business that is so aligned with you and everything that makes up who you are? Do you know that there has to be a way to do this without so much hustle and without chasing the latest shiny objects, but you're just not sure how? You can definitely have a dream business that improves, not consumes your life, that allows you to work with soulmate clients while helping you and your family financially and in all ways. You can elevate yourself to be the entrepreneur who has all of her desires. I'm going to show you how on the Elevated Femmes movement. Hi, welcome to another episode of the Elevated Femmes movement. Today I have Sara, and I'm so tempted to pronounce your name the Italian way, but I think you just say it Iannacone?
Iannacone, yeah.
Iannacone. I'm like, Iannacone.
It's like the American version of, I know. That's the right way to say it, I think. But
I practiced for a long time, Sara.
I love it.
No, I'm kidding.
I'll respond to either, to be honest.
So I have Sara here with me. She is an amazing copywriter, and she's become a friend. We were in a coaching container together, and we're going to talk about how she's been building this great business that she's been running, and how she does it her way, how she makes it work for her lifestyle. But Sara, before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit more about your background story and how you got started with your online business.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the core of everything for me is travel. It always comes back to travel for me. That's sort of my biggest passion in life. So when I was in high school trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, travel was just sort of like, how do I make this into a career? So I ended up going to school for tourism and hospitality management, which looking back, I don't know, was the greatest decision. However, it led me to a path down, hotels, events, all of that kind of stuff. So after about 10 years of switching jobs, like almost every year, there were a couple that lasted 2 years, but I was definitely a chronic job hopper, which was not good at the time. Now I feel like it's become a little bit more acceptable. But the one time I went to go quit another job, and my mom's like, Sara, like, can you really not stay like another 6 months? Like, just try. And I was like, nope, not having it. So I just couldn't really find my thing. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I couldn't figure out what I enjoyed. And finally, I ended up in a job as an event planner / marketer for a manufacturing company. And I traveled for work. I was able to go, I planned a luxury meeting in Mexico, which, to be honest, sounds like the coolest job in the world. But when I actually got into it, I was like, man, it's just not for me. Like, it was long hours. The commute was long. And I loved my team. I loved the thought of what I was doing. But at the end of the day, I was burnt out. I had anxiety. It was just not going well. So I took a good hard look, and I was like, this is probably the best 9 to 5 that I'm possibly going to have. Like, I have a great salary. I get to travel. I love my team. I actually take my lunch breaks, which is something that a lot of people didn't do. So I was like, what is the real problem here? And I sort of realized that I just wanted more freedom than a 9 to 5 would ever give me. And that's when I met up with a friend in Spain, and he had left his corporate job in hotels to work as a contractor for an events company. So they sourced hotels for meetings and events across the world. So I was like, that's my favorite part of my job now. So let me try it. So I did that in July 2019. I did it for a good, 6-9 months before the pandemic happened. And then during the pandemic, I was like, well, selling meeting and events right now on a commission basis really is not going to go super well. So I had to sort of reevaluate again at that point. And it was very stressful in the middle of the pandemic with all of these things happening. I was like, well, what skills do I have? Because the only thing that I knew at that point was that I did not want to go back and work for somebody else. I had sort of had a little taste of that freedom that I could have. And I knew that I wasn't willing to give that up. So the underlying factor of all of those events jobs and hotels jobs was always that I had some component of marketing in my job description. So I wrote newsletters, I wrote blogs, I wrote, different things. And I was like, why don't I try doing this full time? So I created an Upwork profile. I really focused on getting clients that were in the events industry. because I knew that I could write about that, even though I had literally zero professional writing experience technically. Like I didn't have a degree or certifications or anything like that. So that ended up really taking off. And that's sort of what I've been doing since. And then I used the copywriting business to sort of fund what I like to call my passion project and lifestyle business that I'm working on growing now, which is One Wonderful Life. And that's sort of a mix between travel blog and coaching business that's helping other women create these lifestyle businesses that allow them the time, location, and just general lifestyle freedom that a 9 to 5 doesn't really give you. So it's a long-winded version, but
love it. Yeah, no, love it. And can so resonate with wanting more freedom. For me, like the last job that I had before I quit my corporate career, because I didn't become an entrepreneur right away, but
okay.
I loved that job. And I was working in Hoboken, which from where I live now, it's like a little over an hour. It's like less than an hour and a half. And when you're young, it's such a fun place to work because you can go to lunch, you can go to cool places to eat.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with Hoboken, you get it.
I do love Hoboken. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then I got married, then I got pregnant, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? This commute is not really like this commute is taken away from time with my baby, or it's going to take away. Yep. So it just all of a sudden became like, even though I enjoyed my job and what I was doing and all that, I was like, I just can't. I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
And at the time they wouldn't let me work from home. So I quit my job and didn't have a backup. You know, it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't know what my future holds. Like I literally had no idea what I was going to do. But freedom to flexibility, I guess, like flexibility and time freedom. Those were things that I really was craving. And then that led me to becoming a fitness coach, which was a very lifestyle friendly business for me. And I think also because it was one of those things like, well, I'm going to be doing this anyway. Like I'm going to be exercising and, you know, focusing on self-care anyway. So, hey, I can help other women do it too. And so it's another reason why I'm going back to it and like reopening that business again, because it's just, I feel like I'm meant to be doing that and it makes me happy and I want to do things that make me happy.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit more about like a freedom-based business, of like a business that allows you to live whatever lifestyle you want. Because I think for different people, that could be different things, right? But like for you, tell us a little more about like, you love to travel. So share with us.
Yes, definitely. That's so again, travel's sort of like my main thing. And I'm sort of unique in a way where I don't want to be a digital nomad. Like I have a house, I have a mortgage, I have a dog that's too big to fly on a plane. Like I still very much have a home base. Yeah. So I want the flexibility to be able to take it with me, but not have to. And I think that's what makes me a little bit different than other online business owners who really just want the flexibility to be able to pop open their laptop wherever. I really wanted to be able to log off completely when I go on these trips and really soak up the experiences that I was having there and be able to be in the moment without being on my phone or worrying about what's coming through my email. So for me, it was a mix of really figuring out what I wanted to offer, and the type of client that I wanted to work with was somebody that would understand that essentially. So the way that I have my copywriting business set up, I tell my clients about a quarter, like every quarter I'll send out like my upcoming travel dates. And I typically don't do a ton of last minute trips unless the spirit moves me, but I typically like to plan a quarter in advance just so that they can have notice. And with that, I tell them that if I don't have things 2 weeks before I leave, it's not going to get done until after I get back. So it's a lot of boundaries, which took me a really long time to figure out. But setting up those structures, setting expectations really clearly. So like in my contracts, I'll have language around, these are dates I'm not in the office for the duration of our project. So they'll sort of understand that from the get-go. And I just setting up those boundaries and those processes and just really being adamant that there's no emergencies in marketing. That's something that everybody says, but getting clients into that mindset is huge too. So I think a lot of my clients at this point are sort of like, yep, we know she's not going to be here like every couple months for like a week or so at a time. And actually, the beginning of this year, I took a week off to travel internationally, January, February, and March. And one of those trips was actually a little bit longer. And then I'm going again in July. So I've been able to structure my workflow and my projects to sort of fit around those trips rather than fitting my trips around my business, which I think has been the biggest reward for me as an entrepreneur. And took me a couple years to get it to that point. But it's like, I don't know, the freedom is just everything that I imagined in terms of having the financial freedom because my business is actually supporting me. And then the time freedom is huge. And, sometimes I will, especially with coaching clients, I'll still log on and like do Voxer chats once in a while and things like that, because that's a little bit different than copywriting. But with the copywriting business, it's very much that like when I am gone, I do not work. So that's, it's been a work in progress, but it's so worth it to put in the effort to sort of figure out what that flow needs to look like so that you can log off, which I feel like is really hard to do as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it can be really hard. I have so many thoughts on what you said. So one, I think it's great that you have like, your contract, your onboarding, because I've been guilty of that too, where like I almost feel bad putting things in my in my contract or like in my, welcome packet that says like, my thing is I don't work past 3 p.m. because, my son gets home and then like I'm home with my kids. But like clients can they could box me or they could email me after that, but I just won't respond until the next day. Right.
Exactly.
But I still feel like sometimes people don't pay attention to that. So like one thing I've struggled with is like getting them to actually like read the details of like what I'm telling them. But I think perhaps like one idea might be there to put it in different places, like put it in your welcome packet, put it in your like first initial emails, like contract. So that way they're kind of seeing it a few times and it's like, oh, okay, like these are her office hours or these are, her travel dates, I think just like everybody else, we all get busy and sometimes like we miss things.
Exactly.
Another thing is like, I think it's so amazing. And for anyone who's, watching this or listening to this and you have a corporate job, I just want to say that I don't think having a corporate job is bad. I think for some people it's great. It's ideal. It's like what they're meant to do. But personally too, like I don't want to have 2 weeks every year to be able to travel. I
that was my motivating factor
when I can. Yeah. And I definitely don't travel as much as Sarah does, but we typically take at least one like big vacation and then a couple of trips throughout the year. And I think it's also like about thinking of like, okay, well, if there are things that need to get done while you're away, like, do you need a team member? Like who, like, is there somebody who can help you keep the wheels going? So that you can disconnect or at least like not be as like connected and you can actually enjoy your vacations and your trips and all that.
For the coaching business, I definitely I want a VA in my inbox kind of thing to answer people's requests a little bit more in a timely manner. Whereas the copywriting business, again, like there's just really no emergencies. There shouldn't be with the structures that we've set up. Yeah. So I just make like a fun out of office, like, oh, I'm in Morocco, like sipping on mint tea and shopping in the souks. Sorry, I'll be back on X date. If you have any questions, like I will answer them as soon as I return. And I have been doing this for, whenever the pandemic ended and we started traveling again. Well, not ended, but, I think the first trip we took was probably September 2021. And since then, that's sort of like the format that I've had. And I have not had one client complain. And that is, I was surprised, honestly. I figured people would lose their minds. But because of all of that pre-work and that like setting that foundation and those expectations up front and like having that open communication, that was just like huge in being able to set it up that way. Yeah.
So for podcasting, like when we work for people and we manage their podcasts and we write their show notes, what we typically like to do is to kind of be like a couple of episodes ahead. So that way,
Yeah.
like if I'm traveling or even say the client is like sick or something and they can't record, like we have like another 2 weeks of content that
Absolutely.
we have that in the bank so
Yep.
that we're never working like that same week. We're not working on that week's content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's good to like set up your system so that you're kind of working ahead. Even for my own podcast, like we're recording now, but this podcast won't be live
Yeah.
for another few weeks. And, there's a bunch of other podcast episodes that I've already recorded.
Mhm.
So if I need to, like the summer, I'm not going to be like I don't have any podcast interviews scheduled
Mhm.
for the summer. So I can focus on like the things that I really have to be doing only
Exactly.
and have more
Yeah.
time for the kids and trips and things like that. So
It's amazing.
it's kind of just figuring out like what are the things that you have to do? What are
Yes.
like the must
The
have?
non-negotiables.
Yeah, the non-negotiables, exactly. So let's talk about another different topic, which I find very impressive because I feel like I started my business offline. So the fitness coaching
Mhm.
business was offline first, and then I went online, and then I sort of never went back. I mean,
Yeah.
I have like a couple one-on-one clients that are in person now, but even thinking of like my podcasting business, I'm like, I don't know how I could grow that business not being
Mhm.
online. And I know that you are not really like on social media for your business, or at least for your copywriting business. So how do you do it? How do you make it work?
Yeah. So for the copywriting business, the way that I really grew that in the beginning was through job boards like Upwork, Fiverr. Honestly, like Indeed has a lot of really good contract work. And I think since the pandemic, especially, there's even more of that for people that are trying to get started without social. So really figuring out like where you can find gigs for your specific specialty, like freelancing females is another really good one for people that are looking for freelancing jobs. So like these types of resources will have jobs for you to apply for rather than you having to go out and pitch. So essentially I was going to the work rather than trying to bring the work to me.
Yeah.
So that's like sort of the way that I approached it. And then with that, once I had sort of my foundation of clients that was like paying my bills monthly, then I got a little bit more creative with like a referral system. So like with the clients that you're already working with, they probably know other people in your space. So if they give you a referral, either send them a gift card or do a certain percentage of the contract value or something like that. So creating that referral system and talking to your current clients who have had a really good experience with you, that is another way that I really was able to stay off of social media. And then LinkedIn, just connecting with people that you haven't maybe connected with in a while that are in these different areas and industries that you're working in. Reconnecting and having those conversations. And you never know what's going to come from that, essentially. Like there were a lot of event managers that I talked to that were, within the event marketing world and needed content that they didn't have time to create themselves. So you never know, I guess, where a lead is going to come from. So just infuse it into conversations with people that you haven't really talked to in a while. And then with growing the coaching business, I am a little bit on social media, but honestly, like I think I post once a quarter, no, maybe a little bit more than that, but once a month, maybe. And I try and stay on stories like maybe once a week, but I run ads, paid ads for that business to sort of get people into my email list. And then I use my email list to sell really, so that I'm not really having to show up on social media really ever because I hate it. But I do like with the paid ads, you do have to show up at least a little bit because if people start to follow you from those ads, you want some sort of presence. But it's really been a mix of, for the coaching business, paid ads, but for the copywriting business, job boards, LinkedIn, having a referral system with the clients that you get from the get-go, and then talking with those personal connections that you have in your own life. And that's been huge for me. Even with the coaching business, 2 of my clients are people that I've known almost my entire life. And that just, you don't have to build that trust that social media is there to build. So tapping into that network is huge.
Yeah, that's great. I think that, we're often told, go to your network, or grow your network, right? Like talk to the people that you have in front of you. But I like the fact, or I like the tip of going or using like the job sites, because I think that we forget, or I think sometimes we think like, oh, that's like for people who like are beginners, or they charge really low. But I think, and actually I read this in somebody's email. I'm forgetting who it is that I follow, but I think she's also a copywriter, and she was saying how she went through this just funk, like she was kind of like reorganizing things in her business, and she was like, getting rid of a certain offer that she offered. And she was like, okay, but I still need like some new clients coming in. So she went to I forget which one. I think she may have even gone to like Upwork and just found a couple of clients, and like, so it can even serve to like, just kind of like bring in some income, while you're like figuring things out. So for like a brand new business owner. No,
not at all.
These are great tips. And and the email list, right? Like running ads to your email list. I haven't done ads in a while, so I'm a little nervous there. But I do totally get the value of like, nurturing an email list and selling to them.
I think as a writer, that just feels very natural to me, because I spend all day writing for clients, and it's actually like 10 times easier to write like my own stories and those nurturing emails for the coaching business. So that is actually like really fun for me and almost a creative outlet. So I sort of decided that like once that felt fun, I was going to stop trying to be on social media and like grow that way, because everybody tells you that you have to do it that way. And I think while you might like, it's good to have a presence for certain kinds of businesses, it's not always necessary. And I think that's not talked about enough.
Exactly. I agree with you. I think for the like fitness industry, I hear so much of like, oh, you have to be on TikTok and you have to do reels every day. And I'm not, I think I'm creative, but I'm not that creative. And
it's
trying to figure out, it's time consuming. I'm like, I'd rather write more emails, or rather like, do a podcast episode. So I'll do things, but I'm a very basic Instagrammer.
Same.
So I'm like, whatever. My people resonate with my basicness.
Exactly. That's what, 100%. And I think that's the beauty of a lifestyle business. Like you're not set in any specific way of doing things. Like the way you want to do things is really what feels good to you. And that's sort of been my guiding principle, is what feels good to me right now. And I don't want to be forcing what I'm doing every day, because that's why I became an entrepreneur to begin with, was to not have to do these things that I dislike every single day. And, in business and life, there's always going to be things you don't like. But if you really have like a strong resistance to something, there are ways around it always. That's sort of what I've found.
Yes, that's a great insight there. I think we can all kind of think about what that might mean for us, and how maybe we've been made to believe that we have to do these things, or we have to do them a certain way. But things are going to flow much better when we're truly aligned and doing things that we actually enjoy. So
I totally agree with
that, Sarah.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to learn more about you, they want to follow you, see what you're up to, where should they go? What's the best place?
So the best place is to subscribe to my email list, because I'm not on social very much, but you can do that through the bio of my Instagram, which is just one wonderful, WANDERFUL, life, and then an underscore on Instagram. So that's the only social platform I'm on. And then onewonderfullife.com is my website, where I have a blog that's about entrepreneurship, starting a lifestyle business, and then also travel, of course.
Yes. And she travels to really cool, beautiful places. So check it out, even if you want to see where she's going next. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me today.
Thank you.
And
this was fun.
Yes, it was fun. Thank you. Have a great day. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for listening to the Elevated Femmes movement. I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, so please leave us a review. If you know someone who could benefit from the episodes on the show, please share it with them. We need more women elevating to their highest potential, enjoying all the great things in life, having plenty of time freedom for their children and loved ones, while doing things smarter and not harder, and growing a business that improves, not consumes their life. To connect with me and download my free resources, please go to www.juliamhickman.com.